Today's lesson is Timeless Tales, the lasting influence of Greek and Norse myths. Hello, everyone. I'm Mike.
I am Roger, and we're going to continue talking about mythology in today's program. Specifically, we're going to talk about Norse mythology, which is mythology from Northern Europe, Scandinavia. Norse usually refers to Norway and Scandinavia. So again, we're talking about the mythology of Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Denmark.
Exactly right. Vikings, in other words, because that's sort of name we use for that time period. About in the late Dark Ages, I guess. The Viking Age is sort of 800 to 1000 or just after that in the modern era in AD, 8 to 1000 AD, when the Vikings were sort of rampaging across Europe, invading many different countries, not really settling in a lot of places. They would build small colonies and whatnot, but they were raiding down into the Mediterranean. They raided down into Russia. In fact, some of the Russians were Vikings, and even, I believe, down to the Atlantic coast of Africa. The Vikings were all over the place, looting and pillaging and doing all that great stuff that people still like to make movies and video games all about. But their myths have also stuck around along with some of the fun things that you might like about them. The guys with helmets with horns out the side, although I don't think they actually had horns on their helmets.
Yeah, I think that's a myth.
That is another myth that came from German opera or something like that. But yes, these are very popular. So let's have a look at the first part of our article and find out how Norse myths have also influenced our modern culture in ways, in very direct ways, actually, that might be surprising to you. So let's check out the first part of the article here. Norse mythology portrays a violent world of gods, giants, and heroes. Originating from the cold, brutal lands of Scandinavia, these stories often feature a strong sense of adventure and an underlying hint of doom.
大家好，第一部分介绍动词 portray， 它的意思是描绘、描写或是饰演。例如 The woman in the painting portrayed a sense of sadness. 这幅画里的女子描绘出一种悲伤感。或者 Henry Cavill has portrayed Superman in several films. Henry Cavill 在许多部电影中演过超人。接着看到 originate 这个单字，它是动词，表示起源、发源或是来自于。例如 Researchers are trying to find out where the virus originates from. 研究人员正试图找出这个病毒是源自哪里。或是 The river by our cabin originates from up in the mountains. 我们小屋旁的那条河源头来自那山上。后面看到形容词 brutal， 意指严酷的、难以忍受的，或是残忍的、野蛮的。例如 The miners endured brutal conditions. 矿场工人忍受严酷的环境。也可以说 A terrorist group was behind the brutal attack last month. 一个恐怖组织是上个月那起残忍攻击的幕后黑手。
Okay, let's talk about the first part of our article for today. Again, we're talking about Norse mythology. And remember, don't let the Swedish and Norwegian stereotype of them being peaceful, civilized people fool you. Their mythology actually portrays a violent world of gods, giants, and heroes. Okay, so here we've got the word portray, which means to depict or to describe. And their mythology basically shows us a violent world with lots of people getting killed and cut up and murdered and things like that. And this world involves gods, giants, and heroes. So, of course, a god is a deity, of course, with lots of supernatural powers. A giant, of course, is a person or creature that is really, really big. And also we've got heroes, people who save the day for lots of people, and they are admired because of their deeds.
Exactly right. If there's a giant rampaging around your land, crushing people and destroying villages, you need a hero to go out there and fight the giant and hopefully win. I guess if the guy doesn't win and beat the giant, he's not a hero. He's just a dead Viking. So yes, the heroes, the giants, the gods, these are things that we appreciate and understand about the Norse mythology and the Viking world. So let's find out about it. It says, originating from the cold, brutal lands of Scandinavia, these stories often feature a strong sense of adventure and an underlying hint of doom. Wow,
Ooh.
That's exciting stuff already there. So yeah, we're talking about Scandinavia. Scandinavia is basically that area of northwestern Europe, Norway and Sweden generally, and it's got, of course, the Arctic Ocean to the north, the Atlantic Ocean to the west, and the Baltic Sea to the south. Now, some people might also throw in Denmark in there, but I think strictly Scandinavia might just be Norway and Sweden, but Denmark, Finland, Iceland might also be thrown in there as well because, of course, people from Norway and Sweden did settle and live in those parts of the world. But northern Europe, the most northern countries of Europe is generally how we think. And yeah, it's cold up there. I don't think that's a big surprise to anyone. A lot of people from Taiwan might have thought of a trip to Iceland or the north of Norway to see the northern lights, and even if you go in the summertime, it will be quite cold. And if you go in the wintertime, it could definitely be cold and possibly even brutal. When we say brutal, we just mean sort of very violent in some kind of way. If there's a brutal attack by a dog, that means the dog really hurt a person, and that person might have ended up dead or in hospital or something like that. A brutal fight means everyone was fighting very hard. No one was being kind. People were really trying to kill each other in any way possible. So that's sort of the violent part of it in terms of behavior. But we can also use brutal to talk about just things that are very powerful and cause a lot of damage and destruction. A brutal storm might knock down thousands of trees and destroy homes and things like that. If someone is being very brutal to you at work, they're just being really cruel and mean. Maybe not hitting you in any physical way, but just saying terrible, nasty things to you. So this is a very violent and vicious and very unyielding or unmerciful type of idea. And yeah, the wind's up there, the cold up there, it's very dark up there. So it might be safe to describe Scandinavia as brutal. It's cold, it's rocky, it's icy, it's not a warm, lush, peaceful, lovely place. It's a hard place to live. It's a brutal land. And these originate from that part of the world. To originate just means to come from a certain place. Often when we're talking about originating, we could say a person, I originate from this country, but now I live in this place. But it could also be an animal, a type of plant, or even a part of culture, a story or a tradition or something like that. So these stories, these Scandinavian stories from Norse myths, often feature a strong sense of adventure, right? Vikings are always going off on trips and voyages to discover things or to kill a giant or to do some great deed. But there's also this underlying hint of doom. Doom is sort of like a terrible future or fate that you can't really control. It brings destruction. It brings happiness. It brings a shattering or a destroying of your dreams or something. And also the idea is that you can't get away from it. If you are doomed, that means you are destined. It's something that can be unchanged. You're headed in this direction, and it's not a very good direction. So let's find out about some of these doom-filled myths from Norse mythology with some names that will probably be quite familiar to most of you. Odin, the wise chief of the gods, lives in Asgard, alongside the other gods, such as Thor, the god of thunder, and Freya, the goddess of love and fertility. The Norse gods are deeply connected to natural forces and human experiences, reflecting the harsh and unpredictable environment of the Norse world. Filled with epic battles, magical creatures, and grand quests, Norse myths often emphasize themes of bravery and honor. Brave warriors killed in war are said to be sent to Valhalla, a majestic hall in Asgard, where they will remain until Ragnarok. During Ragnarok, the end of the world, the gods and the warriors of Valhalla will engage in a final battle with the giants. This battle will destroy, but also renew the world.
第二部分介绍介系词 alongside， 表示与点点点一起或是在点点点旁边。举例来说 David worked all night alongside his colleagues in order to complete the project in time. David 整夜与同事一起工作，以及时完成那项专案。又或者说 Police officers pulled up alongside the car that was playing loud music. 警察把车停在大声播放音乐的那辆车旁边。继续看到动词 reflect， 它的意思是反映、显示， 也可以是反射光、热、声音等。例如 Angela's excellent essay reflects her deep study of the subject matter. Angela 出色的论文反映了她对该题材的深入研究。又或者说 The lake reflects the mountains perfectly on a clear day. 晴天时，湖面完美地反射出山脉的倒影。再来，我们看到 quest 这个单字，它是名词，指的是探索、寻找或是追求。可以说 The pirates are on a quest to find the lost treasure. 海盗们正在寻找丢失的宝藏。或者 After years of hard work, Renee finally completed her quest to become a doctor. 经过多年的努力 Renee 终于完成了成为一名医师的追求。最后看到动词 renew， 它表示重新开始或是更新。我们可以说 The television show renewed my interest in boats. 这个电视节目重启我对船的兴趣。最后一句 The company renewed their office building for a better work environment. 该公司更新了办公大楼，以改善工作环境。
Okay, now remember when we were talking about Greek mythology, we talked about Zeus being the head god, the leading god. Well, in Norse mythology, we've got Odin, and he is the wise chief of the gods, and he lives in Asgard alongside the other gods, such as Thor, the god of thunder, and Freya, the goddess of love and fertility. So it's kind of a similar situation here. We've got the chief of the gods, Odin. He's the wise chief of the gods. I guess Zeus isn't so wise. He does kind of weird things in Greek mythology, but Odin is actually wise. He's pretty smart. He knows how to behave himself, and he lives in Asgard, which is like their equivalent of Mount Olympus there. Yeah. And he's there alongside or with those other gods. And we've got some examples of some gods that are there in Asgard. We've got Thor, the mighty Thor, and we've got Freya, who is the goddess of love and fertility. Fertility is talking about making things grow, okay? Basically, it talks about how many nutrients are in the soil, for example. Is the land fertile? Can you grow plants in that soil? So we're talking about fertility. We're also talking about people's ability to reproduce and produce children.
Exactly. If you want to have some babies, pray to Freya. She might help you out. It says the Norse gods are deeply connected to natural forces and human experiences, reflecting the harsh and unpredictable environment of the Norse world. Okay, so that's maybe a slight difference to Greek myths. The Norse gods are very connected to natural forces, so it was a bit more of an animist maybe. Some religions will put beliefs of the rocks have a power, the winds have a power, the seas have a power. It's not just the gods controlling it, it's the actual things in nature that we find. They might have their own sort of god or some kind of supernatural power affecting them, and also human experiences, right? Of course, love and death and fear and anger and all of those different things can be reflected in the stories that come from the gods and how they deal with love and anger and death and fear, and we can use that to sort of get advice and to live our lives the way the gods might have handled these things. We do the same. So these reflect the harsh and unpredictable environment of the Norse world. To reflect in this way, it doesn't mean exactly like we would say your image reflects in a mirror, light reflects off glass or something like that, but it's kind of how it copies it, how it sort of follows the same idea, how it basically has some of the same themes and some of the same worries and some of the same experiences that the gods have. And this happens in our world, and it also happens in their world. It kind of throws back these ideas that the gods are experiencing and we are also experiencing. And this is the unpredictable environment of the Norse world. Yeah, the weather there can be very unpredictable. The winds can be very unpredictable. If you're out in a boat, like the Vikings would travel by boat, storms can appear out of anywhere. If something's unpredictable, it's hard to predict. It will always surprise you, and sometimes those will not be very nice surprises.
Would you describe the weather in Taiwan as being unpredictable, Mike?
Not particularly. You know, we often can get up in the morning and know what the temperature will be like. But of course, when we get around storms, when typhoons are nearby, the weather gets much more unpredictable.
Yeah, well, of course, we have technology to tell us if a typhoon is coming or something like that. But I guess back in those days, they did not have weather forecasting, so the weather was very unpredictable. They could get blizzards and mighty bad storms, and maybe the northern lights would scare them because they didn't know what those lights were. So yes, indeed, we have the unpredictable environment of the Norse world in Scandinavia there. And let's move on now to the next paragraph. It says, filled with epic battles, magical creatures, and grand quests. Norse myths often emphasize themes of bravery and honor. Okay, so of course these stories have lots of epic battles. Great armies are fighting each other. If somebody wins the battle, it changes things big time. And we've got magical creatures. Maybe we've got trolls or whatever. And then we've also got these grand quests. A quest is like some sort of journey or adventure in which you're trying to achieve something. So maybe you have a quest to throw the ring of power into Mount Doom in Mordor. That's a quest. It's something you want to accomplish. And of course, it involves lots of danger and it takes a long time.
Exactly. Norse myths often emphasize themes of bravery and honor. Brave warriors killed in war are said to be sent to Valhalla, a majestic hall in Asgard where they will remain until Ragnarok. All right, so these are words that you might be a little bit familiar with. I think a lot of these words have actually appeared in the Thor Marvel movies in several different versions. So brave warriors, someone who fights, a soldier, could be a warrior, but we also think of it more in the ancient idea of not someone who's like in an organized army with uniforms and ranks, but some powerful guy with a sword and an axe in one hand, a sword in the other, a shield, and they go off and they fight ancient style, medieval style battles. But today you could hear soldiers describing themselves as warriors too, people for whom conflict and fighting is their job. It is their daily way of life. And if they're killed in war, if they're killed in battle, they are said to be sent to Valhalla. I think that's only if you're killed bravely in battle. If you're shot in the back with an arrow while running away, you're probably not going to go to Valhalla. But if you kill 14 of the enemy before they take you down, ooh, wow, what a hero. And then you will definitely deserve to be in Valhalla. What is this place? It's a majestic hall in Asgard. Okay, so it's just a place. It's a building, a hall, not meaning like a hallway that connects two rooms in a house, but a very large building, kind of like a conference hall or a banquet hall or something like that. So imagine a place filled with the bravest warriors from the Norse mythology and Norse times, Viking history, and they're all drinking and celebrating and partying in there and talking about all their great triumphs and victories in battle. And this is a majestic place. Something that's majestic is sort of grand, it's imposing, it gives you the feeling of something being very impressive and beautiful and dignified. We often think of things connected to royalty as being rather majestic. When the king or the queen of England might get married or pass away, they'll have this big ceremony with soldiers and music and everyone in their special robes, and ooh, it's all very grand and dignified and majestic. And so these Viking warriors, these dead warriors, these heroes, they will stay there drinking and celebrating and enjoying their wine and song while they remain until Ragnarok. And what is Ragnarok?
Ragnarok, yeah. Well, that's the end of the world. It's like the epic battle between good and evil. And that's when the gods and the warriors of Valhalla will engage in a final battle with the giants. So if you engage in something, you are involved in that thing, and it's usually a pretty big deal. You might be engaged in a conflict or engaged in some sort of business deal when you're trying to execute a hostile takeover of another company or something like that. Yes, indeed, they will engage in a final battle. They will be involved in that final battle, and they will fight the giants. And I guess the giants are bad.
Now, the giants are very bad and very big, but we have to beat them. And this battle will destroy, but also renew the world. Wow, so this is sort of the destruction myth, how the society will fall and crumble. But don't worry, there's good news, because it will renew the world. It will make the world new again. It will bring a fresh new world, Viking World Mark II or something like that. So through the destruction of one thing, we will then have the creation and rebirth. The new form of this world will happen after this great battle. I guess assuming the Vikings win and the giants are defeated. All right, let's look at the last part of our article before we wrap things up. Thanks to such captivating tales, the influence of Norse mythology continues to endure. Indeed, it can even be seen in the names of the days of the week, such as Wednesday, Odin's Day, and Thursday, Thor's Day.
Okay, here in the final paragraph it says, thanks to such captivating tales, the influence of Norse mythology continues to endure. So we're talking about these stories being captivating. They capture our attention. They are charming. They're interesting. And yes, indeed, they continue to exist because they are so captivating, because they are so attractive. Indeed, it can even be seen in the names of the days of the week, such as Wednesday, which comes from Odin's day, and Thursday, which means Thor's day. I bet you didn't know that, did you?
There you go. You can even keep going. Friday, of course, would be Freya's day, that goddess that we had mentioned earlier, too. So yeah, a lot of the days of the week, there you go, come straight from Norse mythology. Vikings are a lot closer to us and our time than you might imagine. All right, let's go over to the great warrior of grammar, Hanny, and then we'll be back with our discussion starter question.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny， 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文第二部分提到，北欧神话充满了史诗般的战斗、神奇的生物和宏伟的探索之旅。文中用到 quest 这个单字，它可以当名词或动词，表示探索、寻找、追求。那其实 quest 也可以作为字根，我们就来补充一下。看到 quest或者是拼作 Q-U-E-R 或者是拼作 Q-U-I 这一类的字根，它表示 seek 寻找， ask 询问，或者是 gain 获得。像 conquest 这个字啊，它的字首 C-O-N 表示完全，字根 quest 表示寻求。那寻求完全的掌控，取得所有人事物，用这样的方式也许可以联想到 conquest 它有征服、征战或是占领的意思。再看一个有这一类字根的单字，像 inquire 这个字，它的字首 I-N 表示进入，那么字根 quire Q-U-I-R-E 这部分表示询问。那进去里面询问，进入其中去寻找答案，这样应该很容易就联想到 inquire 它有询问啊、调查、打听的语义。好，那么课文接着提到说，在战争中阵亡的勇士据说会被送往英灵殿，它是一座位于阿斯加的宏伟大殿，那些勇士就会留在那边直到诸神黄昏。好，文中用到形容词 majestic， 它是指说雄伟的、壮丽的、威严的。我们也来拆解它的字根。首先来看看这个字根 M-A-G-N 或者是拼作 M-A-G-N-I， 表示巨大的、众多的。那这个字根是源自于拉丁文的 M-A-G-N-U-S， 拉丁文的比较级会是 M-A-J-O-R， 那么最高级会是 M-A-X-I-M， 所以我们就会发现呢，含有 M-A-J 或者是 M-A-X 的字都带有大或者是多的语义。所以我们看到课文单字 majestic， 它是由名词 majesty 再加 ic 而来，那么 MAJ 表示多， ty 是名词字尾， ic 是形容词字尾，合在一起 majestic 可以用来形容是壮丽的、宏伟的。那它的名词 majesty 则是表达壮丽、宏伟。顺便补充几个有相同字根的单字。第一个 majority， 它的字根 MAJ 表示多的， OR 是比较级，那么 ITY 是名词字尾，合在一起 majority 就表示多数。好，那么第二个 magnitude 这个字，它的字根 MAGN 表示大， TUDE 是名词字尾，合在一起 magnitude 表示巨大、重大、重要性。第三个补充的是 magnificent， 它的字根 MAGN 表示极大的， FIC 表示做， ENT 是形容词字尾，那我们就可以用制造出极大的场面去联想到 magnificent， 它有壮观的、宏伟的、令人印象深刻的意思。好，那么以上今天重点整理，我们来回顾今天的单字吧。
Portray. The statue portrays a mother holding her child. Brutal. Winter in Siberia can be extremely brutal.with temperatures often dropping to minus 40 degrees Celsius or lower. Alongside. Danielle always feels safer when her dog walks alongside her. Reflect. Lorenzo's kind actions reflect his true character. Quest. The knight went on a quest to rescue the princess. Warrior. The tribe's warriors were known for their strength and courage. Renew.Some fresh paint would renew the look of the old house.
Discussion Starter starts now.
Here's our discussion starter question, and it is, do you find Greek mythology or Norse mythology more appealing, and why?
I find the tales of Norse mythology more interesting since they have lots of fighting, swords, giants, and scary wolves like Fenrir the wolf. And of course, Asgard sounds like a great place, or Valhalla, I should say, sounds like a great place to hang out as long as I kill many enemies in battle before I myself are struck down. And hey, if you're a fan of heavy metal music, I think a lot of this Norse mythology might also be interesting to you.
They do like that kind of music up there, don't they? Well, Greek myths are more appealing to me because I'm not really familiar with Norse myths quite yet. I suppose if I get more familiar with Norse myths, I will enjoy them equally.
Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of our program, and please make sure you join us again next time. From all of us here, I am Mike.
I am Roger.
See you next time.